Where you at with the police? You think most of them do their jobs properly? Like what percent?
I think that technology, the idea, most things can't stand under scrutiny. Like anything you scrutinize, like most things don't stand. Like if you got a chance to have history viewed through the social media prism, nobody would be great. Mm-hmm. So I think and the whole notion of black men in this country is basically one that's forwarded by the media. So you see shit on TV, you read the news, that's your opinion. Mm-hmm. I think they're subject to the same thing. Now we're seeing them do things, and our opinions of them are changing. Yeah. And so I think that when people say there are more bad cops than good cops, how do we know that? That's just what you say.
Yeah, there's no way that's true.
Right. Like I think they're proud of, they have high rates. They have the highest rates of domestic abuse, the highest rates of alcohol, drugs.
It's a tough job.
Yes, it's a tough job.
Who the fuck would want the job to begin with?
So don't tell me that they're
and everything that's going on now. You would have to be crazy to want to be a policeman.
So to me, I don't think this is the predicate for me. If I say bad cop, what a bad cop is. And there's a police officer who visualizes somebody, who can think of somebody's name and think of somebody's face that he associates that with or her with, they shouldn't be a police officer.
Right.
If I say bad cop and you picture somebody, why is that person still a police
officer? But you think the majority are doing the job properly?
Absolutely. Absolutely. But for me,
it seems like Black Lives Matter confuses that issue and makes that percentage way higher. Like
I think that you can't. Again, I wouldn't belong to Black Lives Matter because I've done so much bullshit. I wouldn't want to. I wouldn't want my shit associated with theirs. I don't want them to be dragged into the shit I've done. But I don't think anything is bad. I think that there are Black Lives Matter people who have said things that were incredibly incendiary, and I think that they're just people who are trying to make sure lives are protected. But I think as a statement, as a group, it would be hard for me to lump them all in one statement. I think that the idea of it is good.
Yeah.
When people say stuff like, well, black on black crime, virtually any statistic you use, black people kill black people, white people kill white people. You kill what you're around. Husbands kill wives because that's proximity. So it's more proximity. Black on black crime, even when you break it down to percentages, there's more white on white crime than black on black crime. Right. But you'll never hear anybody say Asian on Asian crime or Latin on Latin crime.
Right. Well, I mean, a lot of people bring up with Black Lives Matter, if they really cared, they would deal with what's going on in some of these poor neighborhoods.
But there's another misnomer. Every day in Chicago.
That's why I'm asking you, DL.
Every day in Chicago, there's a group called the Defenders. They go out, they try to stop violence. There's Mothers of Inglewood. They go out and they try to stop violence. There's a fraternity, go out and try to stop violence. Just the people black people send black people to jail for hurting black people every single day in this country. If there's a problem of mass incarceration, a lot of black people going to jail, it's because black people and black juries send them there. Yeah. So we can't be unconcerned about crime.
So you're some of this stuff out.
The biggest indicator of crime is not race, it's poverty. So black people happen to live in the murder rate in Chicago is high, and nobody disputes that. What's even higher? The unemployment rate.
Right.
You tell people to put down a gun and they're not picking up a job, they're not going to do it.
Right.
So you can't say just stop the violence. It's a misnomer. You want to stop crime and poverty? You want to stop crime and violence? Look at what foments.
Right.
If me and you, like any organism that you take, any living organism, if I took organisms and I put them in a small space, they would fight over resources. Anything that goes on your garden, that goes on your body right now. So why is it's such a misnomer that it would happen in ghettos?
But going back to my original point is, I don't think it's going to be a black and white. I think, to be honest with you, it's a poor versus rich.
Right.
It's the standard of living. The inner city has to be. I've lived in the city. I've lived in the country. You know what? I have as many poor white trash people get arrested and shot at as black people I have living near me in the city.
Right.
It's money.
The
police in the United States are taught terribly. They're taught to shoot first, ask questions later.
Right.
You don't have this problem in other industrial countries because they train the police to actually talk to the people, talk to them as human beings, use non-lethal methods.
Let me just stop you. You're making some very valid points, and I think that when you look at areas that are the fact that you hear black on black crime and not white on white crime or Latin on Latin crime is a narrative, because the biggest indicator of crime is poverty. As you just alluded to, but they will when a guy goes into Aurora, Colorado, shoots 19 white people, they don't say white on white crime. There is a reason they call it black on black crime, because it feeds into a narrative. If it's black on black crime, that fire has to be extinguished. We get to take extraordinary measures to act whatever way we want, and people will say, okay. When people say black on black crime, they are saying they're paying everybody with one broad brush. We had a caller just now say he believes black people need to learn how to behave.
John from Long Island.
my son, who's an artist, right? So if that isn't, I think a lot of people feel like their biases are real. I have more reason to fear you. You're more. They did and you can read this. This is not me making it up. They think that black people are less inclined to feel pain, that they're bigger and stronger and older than they are. So those are biases. People have those. They're deeply held. So if we have those biases, and how can they not play out in our lives? I live. To me, there is still it doesn't feel any different to me, but there's still a fear. When my son leaves, I'm horrified till he gets home. Jesus. Horrified. And that's not hyperbolic. I'm horrified till he gets home.
Right.
And that somebody could take my son from me, and then they'd say, well, the police officer was scared and he didn't know, and nobody be about to account for that. That's too much for no human being should ever have to feel like that. None.
Do you just text him all night long?
I'll show you his text.
I believe it.
I say, son, I know you're grown, but I won't even get undressed till my son gets home.
Jesus.
I will also add to this narrative that my son works for a gas station convenience store, and it's in a poor area. The majority of the people there are white, but I am shitless myself because they have been robbed 3 times by white people. There's fights every other night, white people. It's just poor people, period.
You get no argument with me. All right. You made a very reasonable argument. Thank you for calling.
Yeah, thanks, Mark.
I said it before. If black people just behave, they won't get shot.
Ain't that the truth? Ain't that the truth? Ain't that the truth?
If they just
Let me ask you something. So the black guy,
black
guy who was laying on his back, holding his arms up, trying to defend the autistic kid, what could he have done other than be black?
Well, you're taking one case.
No. There's also a case in South Carolina, actually, where a police officer just got fired. A man was reaching for his wallet, and he shot him.
Right.
So
that happens to white people or just black people?
Well, here's the thing. All I know is this, that it shouldn't happen to anybody, but it has a higher propensity to happen to black people because of the way people see us.
I don't think so. I think it's the way that you behave.
Okay, so that means all black people behave that way, right? So you're saying that all black people behave in a way that is lethal. All black people do it. So that's just like me saying that all white people are. That's just like me saying all white people are racist, right?
Yeah, probably.
Right. See, okay, then. So if all white people are racist, then no matter what black people do, they're gonna get shot.
Let me ask John this: you think 80% of black people need to behave?
Yes.
Okay.
Look at your jails.
You know why black people go to? Do you know that black people and white people commit and do drugs about the same rate, but black people have a higher level of going to jail?
No, they don't.
That's absolutely true. If you read more people arrested in this country, in the United States of America, are white. More people arrested. 70% of the people. Right.
Maybe because they make up the majority of the population.
Right. So more police, but most of the people who go to jail for the very same offenses are black. Why is that?
Because they don't behave.
Because people like you sit on juries, and people like you are police officers, and people like you are district attorneys, and they have a certain bias. And whereas it's youthful folly to a kid that doesn't look like me, to me it's more demonic behavior, and I got to go to jail. It's all perceptive. Your biases, like you are just expressing right now, are why black people get shot and go to jail, because you believe they're inherently more evil, they're inherently more violent, and they should be dealt with more harshly. That's just the truth.
To be a little more cushy. So I don't know how you work that out.
70% of the people killed by police officers who kill police officers are white. 70. We're talking about this year.
Right.
White. Why? So 70%. That's a pretty high percentage. Why aren't you more scared of a white guy reaching for his wallet?
I don't know. I don't know.
I
truly don't have the answer to that.
In Cleveland, Tamir Rice was a 12-year-old boy who had a toy gun. Right. It's an open carry state. The police officer who shot him was with the Independence Police Department. He was fired because he was such a poor officer. They said no amount of training will make him a viable officer.
Right.
9 months later, he was hired in Cleveland. This is not me making it up. You look it up.
Right.
That very inept officer was the one who killed Tamir Rice, who was a 12-year-old boy. He said, well, he looked like a grown man with a gun. Then how come your response wasn't, do you have a license to carry that? Mm-hmm. Instead of shooting you? Because having a black man having a gun in an open carry state shouldn't be that.
So you
unusual.
think an experienced black officer would have a different take on that?
I think that biases get people killed. I think that people's idea, like to me, if your bias gets a young black man killed, or if that fear and people not being heard is what those young men who kill those officers would say. Nobody's listening to me, so you do something heinous. But I think
let me ask you a question.
Sure.
Do you think that we're in a cycle where Black Lives Matter is bad-mouthing the cops and more blacks are resisting arrest, which is leading to kind of predictable outcomes?
Let's
or do you think
be
technology,
clear.
Let me just finish, though. Or do you think that technology is just capturing more of what's been going on forever?
I think if you look at the interaction of black people and police officers, you watch 30 for 30, right? A police officer Parker, who has a Parker Center, he said specifically blacks don't know how to act, they shouldn't be in the city. He specifically recruited people to
that
be
came out
arrested,
all right.
Right? And police departments all over the country did it. Police departments were the ones, when it was illegal to sit at lunch counters, they were the ones who beat you for that. And when it was illegal for you to vote, they were the ones who enacted that. So our interaction with the police has virtually always been the same. Always been the same.
But now everyone's, carrying
But now
their
everybody
phones.
gets to see, and some shit doesn't survive scrutiny. There are things that you can't reason away now.
So what?
Hey,
So what's
Ted.
Hey, how's it going, Theo?
Excellent. How are you?
Yeah, I just have to comment on that last caller and about shooting people in the leg.
Yeah.
You're a fucking imbecile if you think you can shoot somebody anywhere specifically. If you're going to use deadly physical force, it's deadly physical force. You've gotten to the point where you have to employ that, and it's center mass because you're doing that to stop an individual from what they're doing. With all arguments aside, all projected racism, whatever it wants to be.
Sure.
But my question to you is we know police are needed, and we know the majority of police officers are hardworking, honest people.
Sure.
And I know that I worked in the ghetto for a very long time, and I know the majority of people in the ghetto are honest, hardworking people.
Right.
We're policing a few jackasses, that make the community horrible.
Absolutely.
But with all of this, what is the answer?
The answer is this. The answer is really this. We should all. There's a word that they use when they talk to people in our community: accountability.
Oh, phew.
Accountability. If you do something wrong, you go to jail. If you do something wrong, if the police, remember the girlie that he just got shot in a stairwell here, and the police officer got convicted. He didn't go to jail.
Right.
If you do something wrong, how come if you see something, say something works for the community, but not in police department? How come if a police officer, a bad police officer, is going to make your job as hard as a bad nigga running the streets in my neighborhood? He makes my job harder. He makes my life more dangerous. I can admit that. But police officers seem to have a problem having people bringing down a hammer and dealing with people who are only hurting their reputations and putting their lives at stake.
Right.
Well, I'll disagree with you because the disciplinary system, and I can only speak for the New York City Police Department, the disciplinary system is harsh. It's much more harsh, and you're held to a higher standard, reasonably so, and rightfully so. But it's not publicized, but you was held to such a higher standard as a police officer. And do people slip through the cracks? 100% definitely. Right. Is there a fail stop for it? Not 100%.
No.
But the disciplinary system in most police departments and major police departments is very, very harsh. And actually, you're hit with a broader sword than you are.
Then why?
Other places.
If that are true, I can't. I'm not gonna. I got to take you at your word. But the fact that it's internal and nobody knows it doesn't serve you well either. If people saw what happens to people, listen. One of the reasons that we publicize and let people see what's going on with crime because it's a deterrent, right? So people don't do it, right? One of the reasons what happens is the harsh sentencing. All the things we do are to deter other people from doing the same thing. So it's public. Everybody sees it. It's
it is public. It's actually a public report. You could, Google it. You know what I'm saying? You can go out and look it up. But it doesn't make for good press to show that they are disciplining police officers. It only makes for good press for the one asshole that either A, is a tyrant, he's a psychotic asshole,
right,
and he needs to be dealt with, or B,
right,
someone who has a bad day. You have to remember, if you're a doctor, you have a bad day, you
right,
kill somebody, and shit happens. You have a bad day as a cop, you kill somebody, it's all over YouTube before it's even being investigated properly. So
absolutely. Let me make 2 points to what you were saying. I have no doubt, and I'll take you at your word that most people are hardworking and they want to do their jobs and all that kind of stuff. And I would submit the same thing. Like when people say that most cops are great. Well, I don't think that everybody a cop shoots is bad either. I don't think every life that gets taken is necessary. But I'll say this: if to me, you would know. If somebody was a horrible officer, I guarantee you there are people that you know in your head right now shouldn't be policemen.
Certainly.
Why are they? They shouldn't be policemen.
Because of the bureaucratic system
Right.
that you try to implement,
Yeah.
you know, and you try to go forward to get them disciplined or to get them out.
Right.
It's a bureaucratic system, just as opposed to, some really bad guys on the street that should be arrested or they should have been convicted and they weren't. Why? Because it's all.
No. Well, I tell you what. To me, the worst people, the people I have the hardest time with are the people who do damage in the neighborhood my mother lives in. All they're doing is terrorizing people. Those people are held hostage, so I hold them to a high standard too. But I think that if we held up, we hate teachers unions, but love police unions. And I think, to me, defending somebody who is horrible at his job, and bureaucracy obviously is at the head of it, a lot of it. But defending people who shouldn't have a job, it endangers you, endangers us. So we always are told how the community should act and what they should do. What should policemen do? What is their responsibility? It shouldn't be our responsibility is to weed out the people that are doing damage in our neighborhood. To weed them out, do you know? Just saying that people get mad at me. Just saying that we shouldn't have people in there that harm our communities. That makes me unpopular. How many things have I said that have made me unpopular to black people? Even on this show, I take a stand because right is right and wrong is wrong.
But black people will get mad at you for saying what you just said.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
I don't think all, but some. But to me, if you're doing damage to the thing that I love, you should. Then I have no problem. You should be out expeditiously.
Right.
You love your job. You love your police officers. You love your brothers and sisters in blue, dude. And there are people who, if a police officer gets shot, nobody goes back in his jacket to see what he did that might have precipitated it. If somebody gets shot by a police officer, the first thing they do is pull up his. Even if you like the kid, when the dude a little boy fell into the zoo, the gorilla. Right. They pulled up his father's criminal record.
He wasn't even there.
He wasn't. Remember, he put up his criminal record.
Yeah, I remember all that.
So there is a attempt to demonize somebody to justify what happens. There are people that unfortunately have to be shot. There are people that police officers run across. People have to be arrested. I understand that. I'm not negating that fact. But I think that there are people that don't have to be, and there are people who shouldn't have those jobs.
As a matter of fact, anytime a police officer is shot, part of the investigation. And it wouldn't be made public, is to look at the officer's background to see if he had any ties to organized crime, to see if he had any complaints, to see if he had anything done. But that, that's not good for public knowledge, but it is, it's not secret, but that is done and rightfully so. But that does occur. And you have to do that as an investigator. You'd be foolish to not do that. You have to look into an officer's background when he is injured or killed in the line of duty, but that is done.
You know what? I think that you have presented some stuff I wasn't aware of, and I think this has been a great conversation. I think
look at that.
Honestly, it's amazing.
Listen, DL, I was a cop. I honorably served. I'm retired. I've been retired a long time. I've been in the military 28 years. I served overseas. I've been doing God's work. Believe me. I had to sit there for 20 years and keep my fucking mouth shut and get abused by politicians, by the fucking media, and by the mutts that want to fucking have the city to themselves. And I refuse to do it now that I'm retired. Believe me, I'm with you 100%.
You're an honest, decent man, and you've done service. Listen, you're an honest, decent, reasonable man.
And there's many more of us.
I have no doubt about that.
On the job, DL. Believe me. So, and I was a supervisor. I was an investigator. I was, a detective supervisor. So, I'm not a super expert, but I'm somewhat of an expert on that subject. So I'm a subject matter expert in this field, and it just fucking burns me when I hear the media holding court and politicians holding court where they have no fucking business of holding court of what should be. This should be where it used to be, at the community level, between the local precinct or whatever you call it in other cities, and the local community working out these issues.
You're absolutely. I tell you what,
Neighborhood by neighborhood.
I remember policemen used to live in our neighborhood. They used to work in our neighborhood and they lived there. So they have a police program where if you're a policeman, a fireman, or a teacher, and you buy a house, it's like 20%. It's like you pay 50% of what it would be. Let me say this:
it makes it hard to be a dick if you're living in the neighborhood you're patrolling.
But otherwise, you're an occupying army. But I'll say this: to your point. When I was on Fox, and the first guy they troll out to make these same arguments, Mark Furman, instead of a cat like you, if you were the ones who were the expert, instead of that Steve hot guy who's on CNN, these hotheads who defend wrong no matter what, you're a reasonable, well-intended, articulate guy. And I think that you have valid points. I think that I've hopefully made some valid points. And I think this is how this how stuff happens. right. This is how stuff happens. And ultimately, I have no problem admitting that policing are needed and valuable. There's no problem at all. But if a police officer will come forward and say, this guy doesn't represent us, this guy's a pariah, say exactly what they say when they see something, instead of being silent, because your silence is really it's really your tacit agreement. If you're silent about it, that means you agree. So just what you said just now, when that happens, and you, like, to me, when that police officer shot that guy in the stairwell and called his union rep and watched him bleed out, police officers should have been the ones who were upset about it. They should have been the one who said anything about it. When that man shot that man with his hands up and he was trying to shoot the autistic kid, and said, police officers should be the ones saying they don't represent us. They don't. Your silence is they don't. They don't.
It's not silence. It's, you have to, and it sucks, but the answer is you have to wait for the full investigation. And there's a saying we have, it all comes out in the wash. But sucks for that, because people want immediate answers.
No, not even immediate answers. When Todd Gurley got got killed, and that man was shot him in the stairway, and that man didn't do jail time for killing a man, police officers should have been upset about that. That makes their job dangerous. That feeds into the narrative.
Right. So at that point, you felt like they should
I feel at a lot of times it's certain things that are just when I don't care who it is. You watch me do it. If something's wrong, I don't give a fuck what color you are. It's wrong, and I'll say it, and I don't have to wait.
In New York, the police were upset of the prosecution. They were upset of the prosecution in that case. CPR was administered. I know how the story came out that the officer panicked and they did nothing. They did do something in the aftermath of it. They called their union. They called representation, and it was a media circus. The media coverage of it and the prosecution of it is what police officers were pissed off about. Police officers no one thought that he should have been, hey, let's clean him up, reload, and put him back out on fucking patrol. No, he panicked.
He should have went to jail.
Okay. He panicked. He shouldn't have went to jail.
Okay,
not at all.
Let me just say this.
He shouldn't have went to jail.
If I kill somebody, I don't care how. If I kill somebody on the phone, it doesn't mean I'm free from consequences. It could be a horrible accident. Why? Because you put on a uniform. Does that mean you're free from consequences of your actions? If I do something wrong on this radio, I got to pay the price.
Consequences. In that situation, it was not. It was not an offense punishable by a prison term.
No.
And no.
Taking a life is not punishable by a prison term. Accidentally. Even if I said it
right there. It was an accident. He didn't intentionally.
If I take an accident, if I accidentally shoot run into somebody while I'm on the phone and they die, I could still go to jail.
Well, speaking about the incident in the stairwell, it was not something that rose to jail time. In my opinion, and in many other people's opinions.
You're right. And in my opinion, and many other people's opinions.
It was a malicious prosecution under a progressive piece of shit socialist mayor, a fucking fall boy, and you just said it, a fucking L.A., a fall boy piece of shit police commissioner, okay, who was a byproduct of shit happening in LA.
A man is dead, and it's just, that's the problem. A man is dead.
A man is dead, yes. And it is not, it is a tragedy. It is a tragedy. You do not fix that by sending a person to jail.
You do. You do actually, because
you
you do actually. What you do is you send a message to people, particularly in our communities, that our lives aren't just summarily. You can't just be summarily executed without somebody being brought to account for it. It was a terrible accident, and terrible accidents happen all the time, and people are brought to account for them. No matter who you are,
Yes,
you shouldn't be.
Brought to account.
He should have went to me. If I take a life, if anybody in the room under those same set of circumstances did the exact same thing, they wouldn't be given that presumption. They wouldn't. They go to jail.
I don't believe so, because I've seen it happen before, and I think the worst I've seen in the situation like that is probation, and the difference is, and not to say that money makes anything better, but jail time doesn't change it. Money changes it.
I wish half the cats I knew got that same. Like literally, we agree to disagree about this particular thing. I think that you're very reasonable, but I think that is the crux of the problem.
All right.
You see things one way, and I see things another, and I think that man should have went to jail for taking a man's life.
There's
no moral
Ted,
equivalence. Like to me, that man who shot those police officers in Dallas should have suffered horribly. That was a murder. That was no different. He was a murderous dude who perpetrated a horrible act. The same to me. When you kill somebody, whether your skin is black or brown or your uniform is blue, I feel a sense of loss for it. But people only act like one thing matters.
Right. Yeah.